proud to be an official 2025 bookend event as part of the Brooklyn Book Festival, now celebrating its 20th anniversary. Bookend events, in person in all 5 boroughs and online, run from September 14th through 22nd and are a vital part of the Brooklyn Book Festival's mission to present programming that is hip, smart, diverse, and inclusive for New York City and beyond. We hope you can join us this weekend in downtown Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Book Festival Children's Day is Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and the Festival Day and Literary Marketplace is on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. All events are free. Pick up a festival guide or visit http://brooklynbookfestival.org for more info.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. We are here with Queer, Indie, and their panel to enjoy a brilliant conversation for the Brooklyn Book Festival. How are you guys doing? How's Chris? How's Halo?
Spectacular. How are you, Hooli?
Yeah, no, good. I was waiting for a video then. You threw me off. I had a weird face at the start of that. But yeah, coming to talk about 2 of my favorite things, mental health and writing. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this chat. I'm sure it's going to be brilliant. We've got some of our much loved previous guests coming on. So yeah, let the chaos commence.
Yes, indeed. And I've got a little introduction to do. And once that's happened, I will bring on all of the guests as quickly as possible. But don't remember, please hit that like button and leave lots of comments in the chat. You can get questions in. We'll try and address them where we can. But we want you to be part of this as well. So we're absolutely thrilled to be here today as part of the Brooklyn Book Festival 2025, celebrating its 20th anniversary. And Queer, Indie, and the Writing Community Chat Show are proud to co-host this official bookend event, bringing together incredible voices to explore one of the most important and timeless conversations in the creative world, which is mental health and creativity. We've gathered a phenomenal panel of writers, thinkers, and creatives who will share their insights, experiences, and strategies. And of course, we'll be happily accepting your questions throughout. So like I said, please get involved in the conversation. On today's panel, we have Dr. Mario Dell'Olio, AC Merkel, Halo Scott, Ross Young, Anya Pavil, Anna Bloom, myself, and Chris Hooli, which is fantastic. So get ready for an evening that's open, honest, inspiring, and deeply human, because this is about more than just writing. It's about what it means to create while navigating the challenges of the mind. So everybody, let me get the guests on and let's get stuck into the chaos of the show. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Greetings.
Hi.
Amazing. Anna, we'll go quickly round. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Not dead yet.
Perfect. Ross, what about yourself?
Yep. Also still alive.
Mario, how are you doing, sir?
Having great time in wine country here in California.
Wine.
So jealous.
Yes. Yeah. Adria, what about yourself?
Oh, it's a bad hair day, a bad person day, but we'll feel better. We'll feel better after we have a chat.
We certainly will. And not last but not least, Anya Pavil, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's Friday. The weekend is coming. And Adria, I think your hair looks great today. So
agreed.
Yeah.
I second that.
You look amazing. 10-10.
Yes.
That's a quick check-in with you guys. Dan in the chat, hello to you. Yes, Anna. Miss Fluffy Kiwi, thank you for the panel. I work in mental health and I'm excited to hear what you all have to say on this topic. So thank you for tuning in. Hello to you as well. Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, looking forward to picking the brains of all these amazing writers, picking up some mental health advice. It's something that we've talked about a lot on the show. So hopefully people watching, you can get involved, ask some questions, and we can give you some good tips and some insights.
Yeah. And Halo, what about yourself?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited for everyone here. I look up to you all, and you're all really inspirational. I'll try to also add like body humor jokes later to make it lighter, but in all seriousness, like everyone here, I think has such a wealth of knowledge that can contribute to this conversation. So thank you all for letting me stalk you eternally.
Yeah, I think it is safe to say that we've had this conversation many times on the show for a reason, Chris. It's because we are creative people and we do tend to have a lean towards sort of more in-depth feelings and emotional roller coasters when it comes to mental health. So But that's open for discussion tonight. So the first thing we're talking about is the correlation between creativity and mental health. What are people's general first thoughts when that gets said? Anybody?
Well, I think writers are generally seen as, I don't want to say that we're cuckoo, but eccentric. We are eccentric individuals with our hearts on our sleeves, and we kind of have to be to put ourselves out there. And it's really tough too, because like we're also heavily criticized the moment we put our things out there. So it's tough. It's like we release this book, we want reviews, we beg for reviews, then we get ones, and then we cry. That's how we are.
Yeah.
I think the correlation between the creativity part of it and mental health is really powerful, because whenever we go through something that is a struggle of any sort, it fires us up, and that's where many of our stories come from. It comes from suffering. It comes from struggle of some sort, and that's great fodder for a good story. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit to do with, and I can't speak for everyone else here, and I don't think it's necessarily true, but if you're quite introverted, it can be a release. It can be quite cathartic to get things down onto paper, even though they're obviously transformed into whatever we're writing, but it's a way to sometimes deal with issues that we might have going on elsewhere.
And how many, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's a really good way, like expanding on what Ross said, I think it's a really good way to like, yeah, you can talk to a therapist, and that's sometimes helpful to like have that other person to jump on, but also like writing things down is a really good way to kind of put things in a larger perspective, even if you're just writing for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, and it kind of links into that, is how many people actually use writing as a coping mechanism for those sort of stressful times. If anybody.
I absolutely do. Yeah, I've used writing as a way to overcome childhood trauma, to give myself a voice when I was told when I was younger, be quiet, be polite. That it would be rude if you acted on this or if you didn't behave. And so I've been really exploring through my characters ways to give my inner child, some type of voice, even if the character is an adult. I'm not holding back with those characters, and so that allows me to vocalize what I couldn't when I was younger.
Well, and I think for those of us who journal, I don't know, how many of you have journaled in your lives? That is, that's a way to put down all of our emotions, and that was the entree into my writing, and when I look back at some of those struggles throughout childhood and young adulthood, that is really helped in the processing of all those emotions and putting them down on paper. So, and that's translated well into writing.
Yeah, I love what you said there, Anya, because I think a lot of people in our generation, almost, the way you talked about your feelings have to be suppressed, it's almost rude to act, in an aggressive way or, overly happy, you're suppressing all those feelings. So I see that as a brilliant way that you described there to actually, and it's perhaps a great tip to get that sort of feeling and expression out through your characters. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think oh, sorry, go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, I think picking up on that, it's kind of all emotions across the board. It's like people who experience emotions in any kind of a big way, whether it's happiness or sadness or any of that, will often be told, like, you need to be quieter. So writing is a good way to kind of put those emotions on the board.
Totally.
It's also, it's very petty, but I am, those of you who know me, I'm a very petty man. It's a really, really good way to have the last word about stuff.
Yes.
Oh, I wish I'd said that. And you know what? I'm going to say that. I'm over here.
Actually.
Well, I think too, like going with what Ross said about the introversion, what Anya said about kind of the emotional suppression. I think a lot of creatives are people pleasers. And I think, and I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I think extroverts do exist somewhere. But I think for me, it's nice to kind of you almost stand up for yourself or say things, you know, like your characters can say things that you would never even try in real life to say, you know? So for me, that's definitely a point where like in real life, I tend to be quite like timid and stuff, but my characters, I don't think would be described as timid. So
you're quite sadistic on the inside then, Helen.
yeah, my inner monologue is very sadistic. But on the outside, I'm like,
As
what
it
do we
should be.
need? Of course.
Some people need that.
I don't think I found a balance between the two yet, because it's either like I'm like they can't hear what's going on in here.
So do you think your creative output will often changes depending on how your mood sits?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
When I'm miserable, I can write a ton.
It's interesting because I'm like the exact opposite of that. When I'm miserable, there is no writing getting done. I have to be like one step above miserable.
I'd have to say that when I was miserable, I still started writing. But as I developed what I was writing, I found things about me that made me happier. So that's, you know, so sometimes, yes, I can be so miserable that I can't write a thing. But on the other hand of that, if I get miserable, then sometimes I may retreat into my writing to see if I can lift that.
Yeah, it's escapism as well, isn't it? There's always that to it as well, to escape into what we're writing. If stuff's getting very, very heavy, then I suppose that leads into the introvert again, isn't it? Somewhere to escape to, somewhere to hide to, and also to torture the poor people that we write about instead. Yeah.
And torture. Yeah, that's the point.
Halo's big on torture.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do. I always feel bad because like whenever I have a torture scene, I'm like, those are the days I have the highest word count.
and that's not fair though, because Halo's is literal torture, and some of us still torture our characters on a smaller scale. But
Really
even and that's not to say that like there's not heightened emotions to go along with those massive big torture scenes, but some of us keep it a little bit lower and do some interior-y, you know, like I'm not, my characters tend to come out good in the end, but that doesn't mean I'm not darting them on the way. So
I've read your books and I've been like, I really hope no one gets hurt, you know, so the emotional manipulation.
I think for me, I was going to say it depends on, like, if I'm feeling like super motivated, I end up writing nonfiction. And I'm feeling something good now. I want other people to sort of learn from the things that I'm experiencing now. So I'll write nonfiction. If I'm feeling really bad, I'm going to write a poem. And I'm just going to try and encapsulate that moment in poetry. And then if I'm sort of in the middle ground, I'm feeling sort of like not super motivated, but not depressed, then that's where the fiction comes in for me, because I sort of need a neutral point to be concentrating on the fiction. Whereas strange, when I'm in the zone, it's nonfiction, and it's like, I feel good right now. I want other people to learn about the things, and the things that I write about are things that are in my life. So, you know, positivity hunting, I talked about that. And when I sort of like got myself from the lowest point I've ever been to feeling okay, I was like, well, how did I do that? And I was sort of analyzing it and picking it apart. So for me, it really does depend how I'm feeling mentally. Depends on what my journey writing was.
Yeah, I totally agree, Chris. I would say that a lot of times for me, it's post the hitting rock bottom, right? So after I've kind of worked through some of those difficult spots, that the more of the creative part comes out, and I'm able to write. You know, when I'm in the darkness, it's very difficult to be productive. You know, when in the most recent experience with that was after my mom died, I went through a great deal of grief and darkness about that, but and I journaled through that. But as I was working through it, it became this journey, and which is how I wrote the book about grief, a journey through grief, you know, but it wasn't down at the bottom. Like Anna said, it wasn't that dark spot. It was post that, right? Is when I could actually see some light beyond that darkness. And I think that's part of that whole mental health and creativity, is that we come out of it and make this beautiful thing. At least we hope it's beautiful. So,
well, thank you for sharing that, Mario. But I've got a question here, that if someone is watching this, maybe inspired to write their story through the troubles they've been through, and they haven't quite taken that step yet, what advice would you have for them, having been there and done it?
Well, could you rephrase that? What do they want to? They're in the darkest space right now.
Yeah, they've been through a dark time and a journey, and they want to document and create the story, kind of like you did.
So my biggest advice at that is journal their feelings, write down their feelings raw. You know, that is without any concern for grammar, without any concern for a storyline, without any concern for what you're going to do afterwards. Let the emotion pour onto the page. And then, you know, then you have a body of work that you can go back to when you begin to see the light, or when you begin to feel a breath of fresh air. You know, we have to allow ourselves to journey through those mental health crises, and then allow ourselves to learn from it post those crises, right? And sometimes we're not going to learn for months and years afterwards, but at least we might be able to get some reflection after looking back on what we've written, all right, and what we've gone through, because we're not going to remember what we how we managed and what the depth of feelings were and why they were like that. That's why the journaling part of it, or the pouring out of what your struggle is so important to the process. And then be patient with yourself. You know, you don't have, there's no deadline to getting that thing done. Like, if it takes you another year, let it be. You know, sometimes that's when the best insights come.
That's beautifully said, Mario. I think that's very true as well. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. We've got a question, Miss Fluffy Kiwi. For those who have participated in mental health treatment, how did that impact your writing, if at all?
Oh, great question.
That's a fabulous question. I love that.
Yeah, I'll go first with this, if that's all right. So I've done all the mental sort of health treatments in terms of like therapists, all the sort of medication that's under the sun. I've tried different ones. And for me, what it did is it removed my sort of emotion, especially with the medication, and it made me feel numb. So I couldn't write anything because I didn't feel like anything that I was writing was good enough. So for me, I had to remove myself from those treatments. And again, I'm saying this just from my own experience. If it's working for you, brilliant, keep at it. If you know the therapist or the medication works, and obviously I would never advocate giving that up. But for me personally, I was like, right, I need to do this the natural way. And how can I do that? So my journey, obviously, I don't feel like you can write unless your body's right, and part of your body being right is getting your mind right as well. So I started doing research, I started taking supplements, I started doing cold plunges, started doing bits of exercise, and again, doing those things slowly brought me back to be able to write from my own sort of space, and that clarity that I had in my mind from a natural source definitely helped to make my writing a little bit stronger, and I felt more like myself. So if I'm going to write emotions on the page but then can't feel them, like if I write a scene when, you know, let's say one of the scenes that I wrote, a young child dies, I'm trying to reflect that scene and capture that moment. So, that's the reaction then. But if I'm trying to encapsulate that, I can't do that.
Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. I'd tried for ages to forget about that. It is one of the most horrible scenes I've ever read in anything I've ever read. And I forgot that I hate you.
But if you're going to write a scene like that, you can't do it not feeling anything. In order to get that reaction out of a reader that Ross has just had, you need to build up that emotion to go, well, how would I feel in this moment? How would the parent feel? How would the character feel after, meeting the child and things like that? So for me personally, I had to sort of move away from that mental health treatment and work on myself and do it by myself and think, right, how am I going to sort of change within me and the makeup that I've got in terms of being able to write again from that space.
Well, I agree with you a lot on there, Chris. We've been through similar journeys in terms of medication, and you pulled me through quite a lot of it. We've had many discussions, the ice bath being one of them. Something I absolutely refused to do for so many years on the fear of cold. I hated it, but now it's something I rely on. So what it does for me, and I know you said this, it puts you in an energetically good mood. So at the moment where I've been struggling with the writing is kind of being overwhelmed with lots of things and being busy in all aspects of life. So sometimes I can get in that ice bath, really change how my body feels, the physiology of it, come out feeling energized and motivated, and I can jump back on the keyboard and produce loads of work. So for something that improves your mental health and energizes you, the advice that you gave me about the ice plunge has been a magnificent help.
Again, it's whatever works for you. Like if you've got something that works, attach yourself to that. Like I tried to come off caffeine for ages. I was like, I don't feel like it's good for me, but I kind of do feel more energetic when I've had a coffee or something like that. And I think we can overanalyze the things that people say and do. Like, we're advocating ice baths now, but somebody else might get in it and absolutely hate it. That's fine. But just try different things. Try different things and find what works for you, I think. And then, if you've got the other avenues as well, you use them. But sometimes I think knowing yourself and going, this is not working for me, I need to change something. And having the courage to go and find those other things. Like when you're in that really low space, you're never going to want to try anything. So again, a technique that I used to try is, what would such and such a body do in this moment? I'm just going to do what they would do. So I motivated by like professional athletes and things like that. Well, they wouldn't sit on the couch. They wouldn't sit in their pajamas all day with the curtains closed. I'm just going to be them for today. I'm just going to do what they would do. And if their day didn't work for me, I'd try something else.
I think something that's quite interesting that has been mentioned several times in different ways is that we all use writing as a measure of our baseline of our mental health.
Yeah.
What state are we in to be able to write, and what state do we want to be able to write? So everybody in some way has said that I'm only able to write what I want to write when I'm at a certain point. Which I think is quite interesting, whether we use it to come out of that point or whether we get ourselves into that place in the first place. It's some kind of measure for us of our mental health is our ability to write and what we're writing.
Before we get too far away from the question that was just asked, I had a very similar experience to Huli, where I went to a doctor about like blood pressure, and the doctor said, well, we can calm you down and put you on a pill. And the pill it very much did calm me down and probably helped my blood pressure a lot. But like was said, I was a zombie. And I'm kind of at the point where I do feel like going to a mental health professional might be helpful for me, but I'm also living in Alabama, and I think they might blame the wrong things on the wrong things. So, because the self changes and explorations that I have made have helped me more than anything else. And I do live in a bit of a worry that a lot of that's going to be pulled from me, maybe even violently and by forcefully. So I do try to keep a lower profile, and I think it's hurt my mental health not being able to. So thank goodness I have writing, because, some channels are less open.
Well, I think what you said, Drea, is so important too. It's not all therapists are the same, right? And finding like a good therapist that is good for you is worth their weight in gold.
Yes.
But if you don't find the right person, they can do a lot more damage, especially when you're in a vulnerable position. I think the same thing for medication. Like, I have gone to therapy, I have been on medication, and for me, I had a similar result actually of like, I wasn't depressed anymore, but I wasn't anything anymore.
Right.
And now that's not the case for anyone, for everyone, because like I've known people who are like, I literally went on SSRIs. It was like the sun came out for the first time in my life. So I think part of it is trial and error because we're dealing with brain chemistry, which is hard because, you know, it's 3 weeks to fully adjust and everything. But I think being self-aware, like I think Ross was saying, is so important because that once you learn to trust yourself and be like, hey, I'm not at baseline now, I'm not okay, that is the biggest step toward understanding your mental health, and, you know, kind of going forward with it. And also realizing like there's some days where I'm like, this is a shit day and I have tried everything and nothing's working, and to not blame yourself for those days so much, but of being like, you know what, part of mental health is having those days, right? You know, and I think especially with creativity being part of it. So yeah, I totally agree. That's hard to go to someone or to start something that will change parts about you and to be like, is this going to be a detriment or a benefit?
Can I jump in really quick too? So, you know, talking about finding the right therapist, I did find one that really works for me. And one technique they taught me was kind of like you were exploring, Chris, asking questions, Socratic questions. What would this person do? What am I feeling right now? Or what is the cause of this? Asking myself a series of questions to really deconstruct what's happening in that moment. And those skills actually made it easier to deconstruct issues in my writing. So some of the therapy techniques are applicable to the writing process. But like what you were saying too, Halo, advocating for yourself and, you know, validating your feelings when you know something is not right with a mental health professional or treatment, and, you know, finding whatever works. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
But that's well, like I think a lot of us have been gaslit by society almost into thinking that what we feel is an overreaction, or we're being too sensitive, which as a writer, like you have to be sensitive to a certain extent. So I don't know, a lot of my work on myself as an adult has been like, hey, is my reaction valid? If it's not, is that a mental health thing? Is that something, you know, going here? And I think, yeah, for writing, I think there's that fine line between, for me, miserable and depressed. Because like you were all saying, if I'm really, truly depressed, then nothing's going to be produced. But taking yourself out of that, it's almost like you start feeling things a lot more. Like I think it's, sorry if I mispronounced your name, but Ora Sabra said that writing can help with stress and anxiety, but also the potential of triggering even more hard feelings. Like there are some days I'm happy. I'm like, actually, I don't think I should write today.
So how much do you think then, say writing block, for example, is more a mental block rather than a creative block? Do we agree on that, or do you think it's not the case?
I think all my blocks are psychological. I think, at least I can speak for myself. I think breaking down, I can always write something, but do I think what I'm writing is shit? Is that going to stop me from going forward, right? It's not an issue of production, it's an issue of like quality, I would say.
I would say, like, it's psychological, but not almost, for me, it's like almost opposite of Halo, where it's not like, is the writing decent? It's, do I have that like ability to overcome the actual mental block that is stopping me from being able to be creative at all?
Right. Does not wanting to let go count amongst that thing? Because like, you know, I've seen that, you know, I know that the most like writing in series is so hard for an author. Because you know you may have one that's doing well or a different one that's doing well, and then you think, oh, I can keep investing my time in this while nobody's found it yet, and make that happen. But then it's like, no, now I've been at this long enough. I know that it needs to be ended, and so therefore I don't want to go write it because I don't want to end it, because I don't want to be done with it. I wanted it to be bigger and to go longer, and I wanted it to, and so yeah, that is that's I think that's mentally me. I think that's my problem.
Many times, I think the blocks are psychological that bleed into creative. You know, if you are not able to get out of your own way to understand what your character is going through at that moment, then there's the block, right? If you are so immersed in what you are going through right that moment, and you can't bring that character through it, then that block is going to remain. You know, so there is a certain aspect of getting to a place where you can see beyond what you're going through. And so I think the psychological and creativity blocks are inextricably connected.
Yeah. So with that in mind, do you think that your having gone through struggles gives you the good level of empathy to put into the characters to make them more believable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would find it really difficult to understand or see how a writer could write about emotional trauma of some sort or emotional struggle without ever having experienced it. Now, do we have to experience, the fear and trauma of a murderer coming after us, or some sort of abuse? No, you don't need to experience the exact thing, but there does need to be a level of struggle within the writer in order to understand what a character is going through.
Yeah. If you haven't had much life experience, but please, we are not telling you to go out and get into some scraps or do some crazy stuff just to get some experience behind you for writing.
Get in a fight and come tell us about it.
No. So one thing that we are all very familiar with is the writing community. And so what kind of benefits to perhaps someone that isn't part of a community like this could lean on in the community to help them through those struggles and blocks?
I will say something I think that's hopefully resonates with other people as well, and it's something that I forget about, and then every now and again I come back to and I realize how important it is. I am obviously quite introverted. I've probably said that word about 100 times. But I realized that speaking to other people, particularly other writers, about writing, it's something that removes that block.
You sounded like you were physically in pain when you said speaking to other people. Like speaking to other people.
Not my favorite thing, but it's true. And speaking to other like-minded people, it can not be that easy to find other like-minded people. I mean, I feel that I'm very lucky to know all of you guys in the first place. But just being able to say, hey, what are you writing? What are you up to? And stuff like that, and be aware that somebody else is doing other things. It can prompt something that you don't get otherwise. And as much as most of this conversation is about how we use writing ourselves to empower ourselves and to get past our issues in different ways, it's really important to realize that there are other people that you can contact, and you can just touch base with people and just say, what are you up to with this? How's your writing going? Things like that, because it is naturally something that you do alone. Although we have done collaboration work and stuff like that before, but it is still a very solitary thing. And a lot of the time you are pouring out your entire internal mental landscape onto paper. No, it's writing on paper, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things where if you're hating what you're writing as well, and you're feeling the block, just to say to someone, what are you writing? What are you up to at the minute? Can make a huge difference. And the little bits of encouragement that we all give each other as well. Just when someone's saying, hey, that actually sounds really interesting. Because I've been thinking about this for 6 months and I'm so sick of this shit now. It's that sort of thing that really helps. It shouldn't be underestimated. As much as it is very difficult, especially for someone like me, to actually do that, it makes a really big difference.
And I think it makes a difference too when you can like reach out to somebody and kind of like connect with them in a way where you're talking like, hey, can we talk about something real for like just a minute?
Yeah.
And you have somebody who like will reach back out to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's almost like in the same sense as therapy. You're more open to speaking to someone you're more familiar with rather than someone you really know. And for some reason, you can create a deep connection in that sense where you're quite open to share those darker stories and be open to them. So I think that community is within the right circle. Obviously, it is important to have and to lean on.
I think
as we hit on community and like empathy for just a second, because we're all here, and I know that we are all the kind of people that do care about other people, and there's a growing like force in the world that it's definitely not concerned with empathy. If anything, makes jokes about empathy and smashes people down for their empathy. So I know that people like us, and that doesn't even mean that doesn't even speak to any affiliation outside of us being this group together. We are writers. We are empathetic. We care about one another, and we definitely, just if any of you guys need to reach out for something, do it, because things have been tough for people like us lately.
Yeah, I think we're pretty fortunate. I have been out of touch with this particular community for a bit for various reasons, and I miss it completely. This is a really significant group of support for my creativity, but just not just the creativity, just for what we go through, right? And other writers understand the self-doubt. Other writers understand the criticism we get from other people. Other writers can look at our work and say, hey, have you thought about this? And we don't take offense to that, right? You know, because we're all in it together. I mean, this goes back to during the years of COVID, this group really came together, right? And Halo was one of those first people who brought us together in queer indie, and then I remember my first time on your show, the writing show. You know, we've come a long way since then, but not just as writers, but as people. You know, and each of us have gone through numerous struggles, right? You know, Adria mentioned what's going on in this country, and a lot of us are being targeted for various reasons, and free speech is becoming a luxury, and we really do have to rely upon a community that will support us in not just our creativity, but in our journey along the way, our life's journey.
It has indeed been a long time since Chris had a shower and sang an Italian song. I was looking at a picture of Mario.
I still need to give him some lessons.
One of the things I was going to say is that in terms of, like, you're writing actual confidence, like from all the writers we've had on the show, and when we've been to like the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival and you meet loads of people, it sort of removes the stigma of what being a writer is, because it seems like when you first start out or you write your first novel, you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm not like this person or this person. And then when you go to those places and you speak to people either online or in person, you're like, well, they're doing it. They said, yeah, keep going. They're giving me confidence. And that can be key, because if you know, if you're like Ross and you're introverted and you don't speak to anyone with your writing, then where's that confidence going to come from? Especially if you don't have it in yourself and you think, oh, I'm not too sure. But then when you get around people and you go, oh, Halo's just released a new novel, or Mario's released a new novel, or, you know, any of us have just released a new book, you're like, whoa, they can do it. They're writing, they keep going, and that gives you motivation as well. And then when you speak to people in person, and you know, we've spoke to people that sold millions of books, and they're like, yeah, you just do this. And you think, what? Like, is there no magic spell behind this? Like, we just need to, you know, keep at it and keep going. And that can be huge for you, right? Well, to give you that confidence and boost.
Absolutely. If it's anything to go by, some of the biggest authors we've had on the show, there's a very common theme, and that is even the biggest authors have sold the most books, hundreds more than most people, still get that imposter syndrome every time they release a book.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Well,
So
I just stepped outside of my comfort zone and went and did something in person, which is only like the second time I've ever done it. But I walked away
Amazing.
feeling like $1 million because right there in person, I was, people wanted to talk to me about the book. They wanted to hear what brought me to write the book. They wanted me to sign the book, and it's just like, okay, it was really nice after, especially after a few months of just everything being in the tank, because Amazon's being boycotted and this is being done and that's being done, and people are too in their own head to read, and all these things that are going on lately. It was just nice to step outside of a bubble and experience something new. So when they say touch grass, that's probably a good idea. Get out and make a change and just do something different and see how that affects your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've obviously spoken about the way mental health and the darker elements produces creativity or can help that process. So what about joy and stability and the fun side of life? How much does that play into writing and creating?
No, nothing at all. You've got to be miserable to write.
I agree, Ross.
Fair enough.
The act of writing brings joy. That I'll say that. Having all my creative energy turn into something tangible, even if it's in digital form, that is something that brings joy. The act of creation itself, even if I'm never a best-selling author, there's the intrinsic motivation and the intrinsic joy that brings. And regardless of what anything else happens in the world, I have that. No one can take that. So there is that joy there.
First draft is always fun as well. First draft writing of fiction is always good fun when you're just throwing it all out there on the page. What's horrible is reading a first draft after you've written it. That really, really hurts. Yeah.
I can just imagine Ross, writing his character through the joyful times he's had in life, and he just writes, "She smirked." That was all the empathy you could put into that character.
All of it. Yeah.
Little smirk, curl of a mouth.
You are allowed one laugh in the whole book.
Yeah.
But with that, Ross, obviously you write humorous fiction, and I don't know who laughed at that, but he does. It's very good at it.
There's irony there, just a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose the question there that I was
it's a dry humor.
Yeah, it is a dry humor.
It's a dry humor.
How do you do
The drier
that?
the better.
We talked about having that sort of being in the right mental space to sort of write a joke that lands. Like that must be quite a difficult thing to do consistently. Like I've only had a crack at it a little tiny bit, and I was like, I'm not in the mood to like try and be funny right now. Like I'm not feeling funny. So how do you navigate that?
Oh, I think that part of it is if you just put enough jokes in, some of them got to be funny.
You would think.
I don't really, but it's not always funny. Sometimes you write the scene and then you go back and go, okay, this can be funny. It's not, but it can be funny. So you have to go back at the right time and try and play it sometimes. It's a hard question, really. I haven't got a good answer to it.
So here's one, Ross. If you write something you thought was a funny joke, but then you look at it and think, no, do you then just take it out completely, or do you try and work it into something funny?
It depends. I'll be honest. If it's something that I really want to be funny, then I will go back to it and back to it and back to it and bludgeon it to death until it at least makes me laugh. But that's the only judgment that I have over it. And that sounds really sad, but does it make me smirk when I look back at it a couple of months later?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I was going to say,
I'm reading from my sense of humor. If the rest of you get the joke, or if the rest of you enjoyed the joke, that's on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Do you actually laugh out at the jokes that you can write?
It depends how long it's been. I've got a very bad memory. I genuinely have a very, very bad memory. So when I go back and read things I've written, then I'm like, this is hilarious. And then I go, I wrote that. I remember most of the time.
Yeah, because I think majority of us, based on previous conversations, I think a lot of us have like become emotional when writing emotional scenes with our characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Has everyone done that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that shows that's going back to a common theme throughout this show and this panel, is that empathy is a big part of our personalities.
Yeah, I think in a lot of my stories, I have a lot of dialogue in my stories. You know, the interpersonal relationships and how they resolve conflict and how they love each other or fight with each other. I think all that stuff is joyful. I think that's all wonderful stuff. I mean, because what gives meaning to our lives except for Ross, but our relationships. But seriously, like we sorry, Ross. We find joy and satisfaction in what we do through the people we love and the people who love us, right? You know, so when we do something great, we want to share it with somebody. When we're struggling with something, we want to share it with somebody, and you know, or we want somebody to help us, to hear us out. But like, what miserable you're going to be are people, you know, the people in our lives. Yeah, so that's where the joy comes from for me, anyway.
Amazing. Okay, in a couple of minutes, guys, what we want from you is questions in the chat. If you could think about some and send them in, and we'll try and get through some questions. But also,
do we have people in the chat?
Potentially, we'll see. But what I want to ask before we get to that point, so is suffering necessary to understand the human condition?
Yeah.
Suffering is the human condition.
Yeah.
Suffering is, exactly. Suffering is the human condition. To be alive is to suffer.
And in some way, and again, back to our discussions, you don't have to have been, almost murdered in order to understand suffering. It could be as suffering could be as simple as, being dumped for the first time in 6th grade when the person you've been dating for 2 days goes with someone else. Those are learning experiences that can show people elements of sadness and shame that they can tap into and then magnify as needed for any situation in a book.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's exactly right. Is like suffering is relative and it's also not a competition.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
right.
My suffering and what I'm going through is completely different than like what Mario's going through or Ross or anybody else. And that doesn't mean that I suffered more or suffered better.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that I also suffered. So I have an experience that I can take. And this is where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, working in a high school for my entire life. Yeah. I mean, let me tell you,
you win.
The drama, that each individual is experiencing, from freshman year to senior year, and will I get into college, and does she like me? Does he like me? Is this grade going to ruin my career? All that suffering, all of it, and all of that kind of informs the future of their where they're going with that and how they relate to the next, hill they have to climb, right? So.
We do have a question in the chat, Agate, that I was going to put in. So I'll let Ross finish and then I'll put the question in.
Really, really quick one, which is, I mean, realistically, how can you measure anything else if there's no suffering in the first place? When joy, laughter, happiness, all that come from. So, yeah.
That's true. And this does lead into, obviously, what we've been talking about. So since we're talking about emotions and drawing on personal experiences, how do you stop yourself from lashing out and getting lost in that anger, angst, and stress? So yeah, I'll pass that over to everyone. I've got a tip for this that I recently learned when I read a book about reframing. But yeah, I'll let everyone else go first.
I put on music that aligns with the emotion or thing I want to feel. Sometimes it's just pulling out of that, whether it's a meditation thing or German industrial, and then going for a jog type of thing. You know, this kind of goes what you were talking about earlier, Chris, immediately changing the environment.
Yeah.
You know? So, but the music usually helps switch me to something else that I need to do.
I used to be prone to temper really bad, like what they call the redheaded temper. You know, I had it for sure. And I realized with help from family and people that were around me that a lot of that was a learned behavior that was passed on to me from my mother. It was the way she acted. And so with that, as was mentioned, reframing of what that was is not something I couldn't control, but rather something I learned. Right. I found time and ways to unlearn that.
Yeah, I think changing the environment is really, really significant. You know, one of the psychological things that we do is get into, you know, a circle of negative thoughts. All right. And then you're circling the drain. And, you know, it's a script that we have to turn off. Right. And sometimes it just takes moving yourself physically out of a space and going into another. And I think music really helps getting into a group of people that are going to make you think about something other than the thoughts going on in your head. That helps as well. But, you know, stopping those negative thoughts right in their tracks is really important. And whatever tools you can use, you should, because those negative thoughts can really destroy us.
I think there's something that you all said. Environment is a big part for me, but also is kind of just slowing down and realizing when I'm in a negative headspace, kind of looking at how fortunate I am in reality to compare to a lot of people and people in other situations. And some things I teach to the younger people I work with is like a basic gratitude diary, 5 daily things to write down that you are appreciative of. And that can really put yourself in perspective. In a time where you're up against things and your anger's rising, that's not very helpful. But if you're having a long day or long week, whatever the case may be, and just sitting there every night and thinking, all right, let's think about this. What have I got in my life that's good? And you'll start to train that brain to realize things aren't as bad as you're making out to be or perceive them to be.
Yeah, if I go back to the tip, so anger and stress and angst, imagine it as energy, because it is. Let's say this glass was the energy and the anger was sort of going up. One of the tips is you need to do something with that energy. So in order to drain it, so like exercise, for example, that's going to bring that energy back down. Work, that's going to bring it back down. The other suggestion in the book, I'm not going to mention, but imagine adult fun time without club. Again, that's going to bring it down. So those 3 things, if you do two out of 3 of those things, that energy is going to decrease, and you can't have, you're not going to have the energy in the glass to be angry or be stressed because you're knackered from your exercise that you've just done, or you've put your focus into a lot of work and you've been really productive. So that's one way. And then the other little tip before that was your brain doesn't know the difference between the things you say out loud and the things that you say in your head. Both are equally true. So if you're really annoyed at somebody, you can say, go eat shit in your brain. And you've got to be careful with that, because if you let it slip out of your mouth, you could find yourself in trouble. But if you say it, apparently your body doesn't know the difference. So you get that relief and then just go on. So I found that interesting. But be careful with that one. The
thing that Chris was referring to, the adult activity, was playing Lego, of course.
Yeah.
So we've got about 5 minutes left before we have to wrap this up because of the schedule of the festival, and we need to stick to that and be respectful of that. So what I want to do before we finish up is I want to go around the panel and let people know kind of what you write roughly and where they can find out information about you, where they can stalk you on social media and all that good stuff. Starting with Chris, we'll go all the way around.
I don't like doing this bit. Obviously, I'm on the Writing Community Chat Show. That's the thing that I do consistently. I don't necessarily write consistently, but I'm always on the show. So that is the main thing. And obviously, we have a website for that. We are on all the various different social media platforms. Substack is one of our favorites as well. So go and find us on there, check us out. I've recently started Substack again. Not done too much with it, to be honest, but I'm hoping to. That's the plan. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Go on to other people now.
Nice nutshell. Halo.
I write dark and or weird things. Sometimes both, sometimes one or the other. Yeah, all of my info is on haloscott.com or queerindie.com. There's a whole directory too of authors who are queer or allies. And so I think in a time when, how can I say this delicately, a lot of negativity is being spread, that's a place that I know I go and I'm like, hey, there are a lot of nice people in the world. And I think the majority of the people that at least I choose to react with are kind. So if you need to go and be like, hey, like, you know, go to a place where you're like, tell me everything's not shit. I would definitely say go to the directory, check out the authors, all the authors here, because you'll get the support and validation that I think you need.
Anna.
I am currently working on getting my thesis ready for publication. So, you know, beware, don't read it. Anyway, so I work mostly with nonfiction and some fiction due to the like overlap in my thesis. But in terms of reaching out to me, I'm on Instagram and Substack mostly. I do have a Twitter, but catching me on there is like, you know, questionable.
Brilliant. Mr. Ross Young.
I too hate this bit. I write very weird stuff, but lighter, silly, odd stuff. I have a series of books that are set in the afterlife, where everybody's dead. Sounds depressing, but it's not. You can find me on all of the socials. I don't like saying that phrase either. But it's normally our young song.
Yes, queen.
Substack, a lot on Substack at the minute. Still go on Twitter and try not to cry every time I look at it. And that's where you can find me. Awkward, right? That was very awkward. Okay.
Excellent. Mario.
You can find all of my books and music at mariodell'olio.com, and you can see my name up there without the apostrophe. I write nonfiction and fiction. My most popular book is Letters from Italy, based on my parents' love letters, and my book on grief, which just came out, Elusive Light. But then I do a lot of gay fiction, male gay fiction, and yeah, that's it.
Adria?
Yeah. So mostly the books are on Amazon, and you can get to them with, I just changed it down there. LadyDreamscapes.com is where I've got the books now. You can still get to acmerkel.com. You can find me on Threads. I do have X, Twitter. I'm not on there much anymore because it's kind of the Wild West now, but you know, that's how it is. And I do have a sale running this weekend for the books in that Lady Dreamscape series. So go to ladydreamscapes.com, hit the shop button, find the Amazon link, and things are all on like Kindle Countdown and some free stuff and all that stuff through the Amazon store this weekend. So hit me up, find me.
Amazing. And Anya?
I write dystopian young adult and also historical fantasy, and now I'm doing a dual timeline contemporary crime and historical mystery, which is going to be fun. You can find me on anyapaval.com, but mostly I am on Instagram and Twitter. I think I'll be starting Substack soon. I just have to sit down and do it.
Absolutely. And I've got a crime fiction novel coming out this year at some point, and it's my first one. So please keep an eye out and follow along for the mysteries and little hints I'm dropping. Also, the host of the Right Community Chat Show along with Chris Hooley, and you'll find us here most weeks, pretty much every week for the past 5.5 years. And we should be here for a lot longer. So what I'm going to say is it's been wonderful. But if you're watching this or you're listening back and you have any issues mental health wise, We talked about the power of the community. Please lean on us if you need to, but also there are helpline phone numbers in the chat, and I'll put them in the description as well. Please do use them if you're in the UK and US. If you're not, please find your local one, but don't suffer alone. You don't need to. And, you know, if you need help with your writing, we're all here to help you as well. But any last words from anybody else?
I think we should have Ross say follow us all on our socials.
Yeah. Yes.
I echo that.
Out of time. Right. Go. That's it.
Aubrey, it's a wonderful panel, very enlightening conversation. Thank you. And Dan,
Thank you.
Such an interesting, incredibly helpful panel. Thank you all for this. So with that, exactly the hour has gone, and we want to thank Brooklyn Book Festival for letting us be part of this once again. But from all of us, it's goodbye. Have a great weekend, and hopefully see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.